Guess we'll go ahead and get started because I have a lot to share with you today. As I mentioned before we started recording, if you have any questions that you want to ask, you are welcome to raise your hand or just comment in the chat if you want me to unmute you so that we can speak verbally. Otherwise, you're welcome to just continue to post things in the chat or using the Q&A feature. So I am going to go ahead and um, before I start, Anna or Tammy, is there anything do you have any announcements or anything you'd like to share?
No, just that I'm excited for this and glad we're doing it. And we had a whole bunch of registrants, so I'm excited for that and welcome everybody and thanks for being here.
And
Awesome.
and I would echo that and also just say thank you to Brittany and the organization for putting this on. News Literacy Project has been a great partner.
Thank you. I'm so honored to be presenting to you all this evening. It really is, it's wonderful. So let me get back my presenter view. Okay. So if you have not heard about the News Literacy Project, you're truly in for a treat this evening. I can't wait to share all of our resources and tips that I have so that you can start preparing your students for our for our information landscape. But I'll introduce myself first. I'm Brittany. I am a former life science educator. I am currently in Cincinnati, Ohio. I was born and raised here. And I also, of course, taught here. Many of my students were non native English speakers. And so there are three of my babies down there in the picture. And they were all English language learners and just wonderful, wonderful students. Here's another picture of one of my kiddos. And I am extremely passionate about equity and access in education. And now I have dedicated my entire career to helping educators teach their students how to navigate news and information. Excuse me. And librarians are actually our largest user demographic. So they find our resources extremely useful, and I hope that you will as well today. So I am the senior manager of district partnerships for the East region. I've got my Twitter and email on the screen, and I'll also be giving you a link to a Google document that contains the resources that I'm going to share today, but also my contact information. So, just to tell you about the News Literacy Project, we were founded in 2008 by a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. His name is Alan Miller. He's absolutely wonderful, and he's still very engaged with the work that we're doing now, almost 20 years later. Um, we have been in this fight for a very long time. We're one of the only nonprofits dedicated to teaching news literacy. And we've been doing it just about longer than everyone else, and that makes us really proud. We started way back in the day as a classroom program, and we now support educators and students in all 50 states and even internationally at this point. So our mission is really focused now on K to 12. So you might see some things on this screen that kind of encompass the general public. We've just pivoted and are going back to our roots of just focusing on K to 12 education. But our mission is to build a national movement. That's what we've been doing for the past 16 years because we want to create better informed individuals who are empowered and ready to engage in our society and help create a stronger democracy. Um, our vision or our ultimate goal is to see that news literacy is adopted by every state and district as a curricular requirement sometime before high school graduation. We know that education is the best way to help create change. And so it is really high priority that that we're seeing these widespread requirements for news literacy. And you've heard me mention news literacy a couple of times, but what exactly is news literacy? Well, first of all, news literacy is nonpartisan. It is not affiliated with any particular stand, political stance or party. And so this is a skill, this is a set of skills that all people need. But to further define news literacy, it is a discipline within media literacy, and it's specific to teaching about determining the credibility of news and other information. And the approach that we take is teaching students how to think about information, but not what to think. We are not in the business of brainwashing anyone, and it really is about empowering folks to practice their critical thinking skills. And we have a right to our young people to teach them news literacy. Um, our students are actually inheriting the largest and most complex information landscape in human history. AI has made some tremendous advances, and I'm going to talk a little bit about AI today. And it has really changed and impacted our misinformation, the availability of misinformation in our information landscape. Um, and so, not preparing our kids and our students to successfully navigate and help shape that information landscape is fundamentally unfair. Now, when we think about information and how we make decisions about actions that we'll take, we know that information is where it starts. That information is going to help us make decisions, which will become our actions. Misinformation creates a problem because it can change the entire trajectory of our decisions and subsequent actions. So, just like this picture shows, when we're basing our actions on information that is accurate, um, it takes a different trajectory than when we're basing our decisions on misinformation. So I think it's helpful to kind of define misinformation. I know that when I taught, it was always important to me to give my students the vocabulary that they need to speak about a concept or topic. So let's define misinformation. And we define it as being information that is misleading, erroneous, or false. And that is regardless of the intent to deceive. Disinformation is misinformation that has been deliberately created to be false. Okay, so people often get those confused, but we have a wonderful infographic called Misinformation in Brief, and I will again give you a Google document that has links to this resource. As a way to kind of help your students understand what misinformation is and what it looks like. The problem with misinformation is that there's not always a clear line between fact and fake. And in fact, most misinformation is going to have an element of truth that's kind of built into it. And even more, misinformation relies on emotional manipulation to do its thing. Um, it is designed to get you emotional. Um, and so, if you are having an intense emotional reaction, that might be a sign that you are engaging with misinformation. And so, I always tell people, of anyone that I speak to, whether it's educators or students, the general public, in the words of Ice Cube, I don't know if you remember this back in the day, but he said, check yourself before you wreck yourself. You really have to take that pause and take that moment to begin to think when you are having these intense emotional reactions, because emotional reasoning will override your rational thought. And the emotions can then cause you to react or and be impulsive and then share this information with people that you care about. And we don't want to share the wrong information. But the problem is, and this is especially pertinent to us as educators, is that teens are especially vulnerable. Now, any emotion can be used to manipulate you. Um, I've been doing a lot of YouTube browsing. I'm an avid YouTube user. And I've been hearing a lot about rage baiting. I don't know if you've heard about rage baiting, but it is really when content creators use anger to manipulate you into engaging with their content. Um, but any emotion can be used as a manipulation tool, not just anger, not just shock and fear, could also be humor or amazement. You're just like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. Everybody needs to see this. Scammers are often going to exploit our curious nature by claiming we've won something. And in fact, I got a text today about something that I had won. Um, and so I just really encourage you to share with your students that emotional manipulation is key for misinformation. Again, you want to tell them stop and check their emotional responses. Now, I bet you already knew all of those things about misinformation because that's what you do. You deal with information on a daily basis. So, what I want to do is really start talking about how we can help our students recognize misinformation and introduce you to some of the resources, the additional resources, because I showed you the misinformation infographic, but I want to show you some other things that the experts at the News Literacy Project have created for you to use with your students. And the best part of this is that everything that I am showing you today is totally free. We don't require any payment information, totally free for you to use and share with your colleagues. So we at NLP think of 5 types of misinformation, and we have an incredible lesson on misinformation on the Checkology platform. I'm going to demo that lesson for you momentarily. But I also want to show you that we have this 5 types of misinformation infographic as well. This is also linked to the resource document that I'll be sharing at the end. And in addition to Checkology, we have a platform called Rumor Guard. And this platform was actually designed to be used with the general public. But we learned recently that many teachers were actually using this in their classroom. So I have made it a mission to start sharing this with educators. Rumor Guard is a platform where we go and we source or curate viral rumors from across the internet. And we walk you through the fact checking process using 5 factors. Those factors are on the screen, but we look at authenticity, source, evidence, context, and reasoning. And as I show you the 5 types of misinformation, I'm going to be showing you clips of our Rumor Guard posts that are things that you can share with your students. So I encourage you again to check out Rumor Guard. It is a wonderful resource. So let's start talking about the 5 types of misinformation. I have them on the screen, but we will go through them one at a time. So first, let's talk about manipulated content. And in manipulated content, a piece of media has been altered or doctored from its original state. And so this is especially dangerous with for our students because they tend to believe everything that they see. So here's an example of a viral image. And it actually was a video that went viral. And again, this was shared in RumorGuard, in the RumorGuard system back in January. But I'm going to show you the video. And I'd love for you to kind of in the chat call out some things that you notice about this video. Do you notice anything? What's weird about it? No one is paying attention to this huge fire. Nobody's panicking. People are talking. People are just going about their daily lives, right? And that's a major clue. But you only see it if you're looking for it. And our students are often not looking for it. Yes, you can't see anything around the Eiffel Tower. It's just dark. So it doesn't even look like it's in a big city, which it is. Um, and so again, this is, of course, it is fake. Um, uh-oh. Sorry, I didn't mean to play that again. I wanted to pull up my fake label. But this is another wonderful example because once you see that those people are not paying attention, it's really hard to unsee it. So when we think about ways that the media can be manipulated, um, it can be edited to add or remove details. You can crop things out of pictures. You can slow it down. You can speed it up. You can change the audio. And people are getting more and more creative with manipulation. As time goes on. So this is a really, something that's easy to point out to students and a quick win with them. Now let's look at false context. False context is a type of misinformation that's going to take a piece of content and put it into another context to change its meaning. And so, as a science person, I was especially drawn to the solar eclipse misinformation that was floating around. And one thing was that, you know, uh, all the places that are called Nineveh, all of the cities that are called Nineveh in the United States were supposed to be covered by the eclipse. It was supposed to be like this end time I guess sign. And it wasn't correct at all. And actually, a lot of these things that were used as evidence were taken out of context. There were only two cities named Nineveh that were going to be in the path of the eclipse. And just about every city in the United States saw a partial eclipse. So it had nothing to do with the end times. So let's look at imposter content. This is the misinformation that's going to use a well-named name, like a celebrity or a brand, a news publication, or a TV outlet or logo to fool people into believing that something is authentic. Okay, it's playing on our, respect for authority and for people who are in prominent positions. We're thinking that, gosh, if Rachel Maddow said it, well, there must be some truth to it. Um, and so it's really a way of laundering false claims through recognizable sources. And so here's an example, as I mentioned, Rachel Maddow, she did not post this, but it was attributed to her. Supposedly, there was a fake post um, about about vaccine injury. And so we were able to debunk that. And again, this is also on RumorGuard. Vaccine misinformation is a wonderful way, a wonderful example if you're wanting to tie science into this, because there's such a robust body of research about the efficacy of vaccines. So this is a really quick way, an easy way to show students one of the things that misinformation attacks. And now let's take a look at satire. So satire, we all know what satire is, and when it is clearly labeled, these things that are using humor to or exaggeration to mock, society or a person, when it's labeled, it's not misinformation. The problem arises when this satire is shared out of context or it's manipulated to look like it's not satire at all and it's a real news report or a real piece of information or it's shared as a fact. Um, and there are a few reasons that people will mistake satire as fact. So even if you're making someone's making a satirical claim, it might what they're saying might connect to your beliefs, and so then you've got this confirmation bias activated, and so you believe it. Um, and so, for example, if we look at this rumor guard post that was actually shared today, someone is saying that the Minnesota Viking Stadium menu is going completely vegan. And it was posted by an account that is actually has a documented history of posting satire and misinformation. So just by, going back and examining the source, you can determine that this is not a credible piece of information. And finally, the last type of misinformation that I'm going to show you is fabricated content. And this is misinformation that is just completely nonsense, and people are trying to get you to believe this piece that they have created. There's no truth in it. So in early April, we debunked this claim of there being a new satanic Happy Meal at McDonald's. And this is actually an AI generated fake. So it's not authentic, but it's also shared by another account that frequently shares content that's not real. So we can look at the source, but we can also use some of the hallmarks of AI images when we are faced with fabricated content. And so, on that note, I am going to kind of shift into not just talking about misinformation, but examining how AI is playing a role now. So, misinformation, we know that it's always changing because when there's a current event or a really big controversy and we don't have a lot of information, people will start to kind of latch onto things for explanations. We saw that happen at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. We recently saw it with the bridge collapse in Maryland. We saw that people started to just develop these really crazy ideas and explanations, and we were so hungry for truth that we just latched onto it. And generative AI and chatbots have significantly altered the misinformation landscape because not only are they making it easier to generate misinformation, but the technology is advancing so rapidly that it can be difficult to determine what to look for when we are faced with information that we need to evaluate. So, I am going to kind of talk a little bit about what's happening with AI right now, and just keep in mind that the tips that I'm sharing with you today, the AI, as I said, it's getting even better. So we will continue to have to learn more about AI to kind of stay one step ahead and be able to recognize it easily. But I wanted to kind of open up this section by sharing a clip from a video. I don't know if you all watch Abbott Elementary, but I'm a huge fan. And they talked about AI in the way that I think most of my teacher friends think about AI. Tammy, yes, it is hilarious. I love that show. So I'm going to show you this really short video clip about AI.
Show up.
Well, well, well.
If it isn't the Autobots, or should I say Decepticons?
I'm already not enjoying this conversation.
Jacob, what are you talking about?
Well, you see, I was demonstrating the new AI detection software to my class this morning, and I thought, what better test than to use one of my good friend Barb's email correspondences? And I was shocked, no, heartbroken, to learn that it was 99% AI generated.
Jacob, I'm sure it was just a glitch.
Dang, Barb, how could you do that? Funny you say that, because then I decided to check your thoughtful review of my essay on the hidden dangers of espresso martinis.
And I meant every word.
Oh, I bet you did. 100% AI generated.
100.
So Ava showed me how to do it, and then I showed Barbara because, we need to learn AI software to make sure the kids aren't abusing it to do their work.
That privilege is reserved for teachers.
So that just it's really a funny to kind of look at how teachers are thinking about AI. I'm a doctoral student, and even in my doctoral classes, teachers have, professors have had things to say about AI generated things. And it's always very interesting because we always hear of AI like as with this mystery, it's this big bad thing that's out of control, but it's been so helpful with scientific research and being able to reduce the time that researchers are having to spend doing research. And I'm actually going to study abroad in Italy, and I used it to plan a trip to Verona, like a little side trip. So AI, and I know you all probably know this as people who are experts on information, but I think it's really important that we don't get caught in just painting AI in a bad light. And that we also, yes, Tammy, I'm telling you, it was so easy. But I think it's really important that we kind of tell students about the way that AI can enrich our lives and has enriched our lives because it's not new. It's been around for a while. But I think that in order to do that, we really have to uh, have an understanding of what AI is, what it's capable of doing, and what its limitations are. So generative AI is the type of AI that can recognize patterns in data to create content like text, images, video, audio. Um, there's also chatbots. Chatbots are a little different. So you may be familiar with like Chat GPT. That's an example of a chatbot. And it's not going to ever go away, right? So we have to learn how to live in harmony with AI. And as I said, we've been doing it for quite a while. We need to understand a few things. First of all, AI is not infallible. The chatbots are prone to error. Um, and that's just because they're going out and gathering information and summarizing it. And so sometimes they may they may be basing their summaries on incorrect information. The other thing to understand about AI is that it can perpetuate biases that humans already have, and I'm going to show you an example of that a little bit later. Um, the other thing is that it is a tool; it's not a person, so it doesn't have emotions. It can't make independent decisions. It's operating based on algorithms and data. And then the other thing to know, which I've already said today, is that AI is rapidly advancing. And so we don't know all of the ethical and moral questions that will arise as a result of AI. Um, One issue with AI, and I mentioned this before, is generating fake information or false information being presented to you as fact. And so that is referred to as a hallucination. And it's actually more common than we think. And so my colleagues the team that builds all of our lessons and resources asked ChatGPT about the news literacy projects. And believe it or not, there were fake things within what ChatGPT spit back. And so that's one really easy way to show your students how AI can present inaccurate information. Have them ask a chatbot about something that they're familiar with, their school, their community, and look for those inconsistencies. Now, as it relates to bias, there was a really awesome Bloomberg article, and I'm going to share it with you on that Google document that looks at bias in generative AI. And um, what they saw, yes, and I agree that this is, if I was in the classroom, I would definitely use this as a mini lesson. Um, so when we think about bias, they asked this AI software to generate pictures of people with different jobs, and so you can see on the screen they kind of categorized them into high and low paying. Things like lawyers, CEOs, politicians, doctors being high paying, low paying professions being like teachers, which I mean, gosh, we should be up with the high paying, don't you think? Um, housekeepers, janitors, social workers. And what they saw is that the images that were generated for the higher paying jobs had lighter skin tones, and the lower paying jobs had darker skin tones. And so that's just an example of how it just reinforces the biases that we tend to have as humans because it's basing what it's showing you on resources that humans have created and put on the internet. And as I mentioned, there are some hallmarks of AI generated content, but these things are quickly becoming a non-issue for AI because it's getting better at generating things every single day. So you may have heard of some of these, but I always tell people that when they're teaching students about it, to make sure to let them know that AI is rapidly advancing. So you have to not just rely on these visual cues, but also it's important to employ other news literacy techniques as well. The first thing is that AI is really bad at fingers, and I'll put number two in. It's really bad at faces, not just fingers. But then number two is talking about the detail in the face. So if you see like the glasses aren't exact, or sometimes like the eyes will be off, like one eye might be higher than the other eye, or things like that. In this picture of Kiki Palmer, if you look closely at the books, you'll see that the books have nonsense on the spines. And so that's a dead giveaway that that's AI generated. AI also has a lot of trouble with backgrounds. And so if you look in the backgrounds, you see like nonsense in the words behind this gentleman. And so that is a clear giveaway as well. And then the images are really glossy, and especially like if you look at the textiles here, like Obama's suit, that's really glossy. It doesn't even look like real fabric. So that's another hallmark of AI. And I also wanted to share some ideas for students, and I'll make sure that the folks over at KLS, Anna and Tammy, get the slides to send out to you all. And I've already mentioned one of them asking a chatbot about a topic that they have expertise in. But also you could have students as a bell ringer look at real and fake images and try to decide which ones are real and which ones are fake. We actually did a quiz like that with NLP staff members, and we failed miserably because it's really hard. AI is getting really good. And so it's always important. That just taught me I've got to brush up on my skills and stay up on my knowledge, so that I don't get tricked. Um, Here we have students using AI-driven tools, to show examples of unreliable sourcing or bias or inclusion of misinformation in AI-generated content. So those are just some ideas to get you started. Now, I want to, I'm going to kind of turn toward resources that we have for you in the last 25 minutes, but I want to pause and just make sure that there aren't any questions before I start sharing our resources and how we're helping solve some of these issues that I've raised today. Any questions I can answer for you? I'm not seeing any now. Oh, well, I've got one. Okay. Bailey said, are there resources? Yes, for lower grades. Thank you so much for asking about that. So typically our resources are used for students between 5th and 12th grades. But we realize that there's a huge gap because kids are being exposed to more information younger. I have a 5-year-old, she's not a toddler anymore, but a 5-year-old who has asked questions about whether information she's seeing on YouTube is real. And so we know that at NLP that our younger kiddos need these resources. So this past summer, we worked with Time for Kids and we developed it's a unit plan. It is not in the same format as like our Checkology resources, but I will be sure to include that on the Google document, Bailey, so that you can check that out. Yes, kids are younger and younger. They're getting their own devices, and I'm guilty of it, because kids need to know how to use technology, right? But we have to remember to teach them the skills they need to navigate the information that they'll encounter. And I'm not good at it either, Tammy. I'm learning. I learn more every day. It's something that the things that I used to look for, they are not always present anymore. I agree, Anna. Yes, a lot of schools are one-to-one. I know that my kids, I have 5 children, and I don't know if I said that, but my even my preschooler, they all have iPads at school that they take back and forth. All right. Well, continue to put those questions and thoughts in the chat. But I'm going to go on and show you some resources that we offer at the News Literacy Project. So first, we do offer district partnerships, and these partnerships are totally free. They include strategizing and helping with implementation. We help with onboarding and really getting your staff confident with implementing Checkology and other resources. We offer professional development. Some of it is at a cost. It kind of depends on what you are looking for and if you'd like us to come in person. Typically things that are virtual are going to be low cost or free. And then we work with admins at districts to just help meet any needs that they have. I have districts that I've done I've sat with and helped align resources. We are going in person to train some educators at a BOCES in New York in June. So that the training, the strategizing, it looks different from district to district because we try really hard to meet each district's unique needs. I mentioned this misinformation infographic, but I wanted to also let you know that we do have an infographic about, it's called Six Things to Know About AI. And what I love about this infographic is that down here at the bottom, even though we're giving some things to be cautious of with AI, we're very careful to let people know that AI is not all bad. Okay. It's not a big, bad, scary monster. It's been very helpful in many disciplines, and so we want students to know that. I've showed some rumor guard posts to you all today. You can text joined to the number on the screen to receive the alerts if you'd like, or on the Google document there will be a direct link to rumor guard, and that again is a free service. Okay, I'm gonna now talk about the SIFT. So Rumor Guard, when developed, was something for the general public, whereas the SIFT is a special guide for educators. And so I recommend using both in tandem with your students. The difference is Rumor Guard is going to talk about viral rumors, whereas the SIFT is more of a guide to the latest topics in news literacy. So sometimes you might see trends about AI and misinformation, but other times you might see something about press freedom and the standards of quality journalism, social media. You might get discussion prompts, quizzes, interviews with people who are experts in news literacy. So here's a recent issue back on April 15th. There was an issue that talked a lot about AI and social media, and it included a Dig Deeper resource where students had to think about how these AI bots can be problematic. So again, another free resource that I encourage you to check out and use with your students. Share with a colleague because these are free, so it can't hurt. And then I want to share our most comprehensive resource. This is our flagship virtual classroom. It's called Checkology. And we have about 20 full length lessons and many more missions and challenges. The lessons are where much of the learning is going to take place. What I'm going to show you momentarily is a lesson, but the missions and challenges are where students really get to practice those skills that they're learning in the lessons. So it really is a robust resource. It's supplemental, so you can use as much or as little as you'd like. And again, it's also free. So even if you use one lesson, it's not costing you or your district anything extra. Right now, we are in the midst of a Misinfo 101 campaign. And so the lesson I'm going to show you today is in alignment with our talk this evening, which has been about misinformation. I'm going to show you the misinformation lesson, which is here. It's hosted by Claire Wardle, who is one of the leading researchers in misinformation, and she was so kind as to consult and lead this lesson for us. So let me. I'm going to stop the uh, the slideshow, and I'm going to actually put that Google document in the chat for you now. Here's the Google document. You will find all of our social media sites here, as well as you'll find all of our resources. You'll find the SIFT here, Newslet Nation, which is our educator community. You'll find a link to Checkology where you can sign up. The Help Center is here because it might be new to you, but I am also happy to be a resource, and my contact information is right at the top, my email and my Twitter handle. I don't use Twitter very much, but I promise I will look out for any messages that come from you all. I also have discipline sheets for social studies, digital citizenship, journalism, ELA, and STEM. These are just curated collections of resources that are easily shareable with colleagues. And then I have at the bottom the reference for today, which was that Bloomberg article I mentioned. But then I've got links to what I'm going to show you in a moment, the misinformation lesson. And then I've got more of the links that were above. I just put them below for your easy locating. So that is the Google document that I just put in the chat. Now, I want to kind of do a crash course, I guess, of what our lessons look like for you, so that you know what to expect when you encounter them or get ready to use them with students. First of all, there are two modes of implementation. You can have students doing these one-to-one on independent devices, but I think that as teacher librarians, by far the most popular way that people are using Checkology is in one-to-many mode. And that allows you as the educator to project the video portions of the lesson, kind of drive conversation, point things out to students, and then students will return to their individual devices to complete the formative assessment. That allows you to kind of drive the flow and pace of the lesson while students are still giving you those data points that you can then use to continue to inform your instruction. Our videos are hosted on YouTube, Vimeo, and Wistia, and you can switch between hosting platforms based on what is whitelisted at your individual district or building. So I encourage you to get clarification about that before you start using the either YouTube or Wistia, just so that you can make sure you're in alignment with district and school protocols. So our lessons are created such that students, as I mentioned, will see a video where that are led by subject matter experts. Those videos are followed by formative assessment probes. Those probes could be open-ended, which you'll see in one of the elements. They could be matching, multiple choice. It really is a good variety. And one of the things that struck me when I first came to NLP was how similar the questions are to to some of the question types that students experience on those end of course and high stakes exams. So a wonderful way to sneak in some extra test prep. So I want to start off by just allowing you all to meet Dr. Claire Wardle, who is our subject matter expert for this lesson. As I mentioned, she's an expert in the field of misinformation. She's currently a professor at the Brown University School of Public Health, and she directs a lab at Brown that's called the Information Futures Lab. So I'll let Claire talk to you a little bit about misinformation and who she is.
An inflammatory GIF of a prominent student activist goes viral following a shooting at her school. An alarming image of a shark swimming on a flooded highway circulates after a hurricane. An announcement offering people of color a free coffee following a racial incident at a Starbucks in Philadelphia. Do you recognize any of these? Which ones are real? Actually, none of them are. They are all false in one way or another. My name is Claire Wardle. I've spent the majority of my career analysing misinformation and why we tend to believe and share stories that are untrue. We've all been fooled by a story or post, only to learn that it wasn't real. But if we share that information, we can wind up unwittingly contributing to the pollution of our digital environment.
So following Claire's introduction and kind of invitation to the students to think about how they've been fooled by misinformation, they actually do that. So the following element, which are these little circles at the bottom, the following element has students describe a piece of information they've encountered online that they initially believed and then found out that it was false. This is a great opportunity to really share with your students how you've been fooled by misinformation. I found that those were the most powerful experiences for my students because it made them feel safe. You know, they were thinking, well, if Mrs. Smith has been fooled by something that wasn't true, then I'm not, bad or unintelligent for having been fooled as well. So I love this question. I think it's a great invitation to students to really personalize this content. Um, Later on in the lesson, students are introduced to the 5 types of misinformation that I shared with you earlier. And each type, the students click through, and then there is a video that will pop up that describes, excuse me, the type of misinformation. Our lessons have built-in word walls that this right here is like I nerded out over this, right? Like this built-in word wall gives students continuous access to their vocabulary words. So this is great. This is a great tool for our students who maybe they're English language learners who need vocabulary reminders because this is new. This is new vocabulary, or our students with disabilities who might, struggle with remembering vocabulary words. I do. And so this right here could be a game changer for some students. In addition, our videos if you use the YouTube as your media source, you can borrow their closed captioning, and we're actually going through now to ensure that all of our videos in all of our lessons are captioned in-house so that everything matches one to one. And that's a very important uh, inclusionary measure that we are working on. In addition, if you use YouTube, you can actually change the playback speed, and then it does have that auto translate feature um, for the uh, for the captions. I'm sorry, I had just a brain fart for a moment. Let me hide these media controls. All right, and we are off to the next element. So after students learn about the types of misinformation, they have some work to do. They now get to inspect pieces of content like this one, and then they have to categorize this information by dragging and dropping. And this is something that my students always encountered on standardized tests, this drag and drop situation. So this is a great way to just get them thinking about question types they might encounter, as I said. These are auto-graded, as I mentioned earlier, and so your students can actually have more than one try. So if they get it wrong, it will just say not quite, and then they can click use a retry, and they get to do it again. So this truly is about them actually actively using the content that they're learning. We then turn from the type of misinformation to the consequences of misinformation, because misinformation is not without consequence. Remember that when misinformation comes into play, it influences our thinking and it changes the direction of our actions, or it could. Sometimes maybe it doesn't. So I won't say 100% of the time, but usually it's going to have an effect on the decision that you make. And so in this assessment, students are really asked to kind of do some forward thinking about how this misinformation could have a real effect on people, on society as a whole. So again, students click the plus sign. They look at the actual rumor and then they match it with one of the following consequences. And again, that is an auto-graded question. Students then have to write about these consequences. So they pick a hypothetical scenario, like this one, maybe this meme of Rosa Parks with a made up quote that encourages people to vote against a particular political candidate. Students would have to then think, well, what effect could that have? So it's not even just thinking about the effect it could have on their life, but what effects could it have if a lot of people believe it and share it. The final question in this lesson has students look at this manipulated content and think about why they are appealing to people. And if we had time, I would actually ask you all to think about why these are so appealing. But this is a great way for students to really do some critical thinking about why we're so easily tricked by pictures like these that are not real. Why do we like to look at this kind of stuff? And so what I want to do is just let Claire close us out in talking about misinformation and the impact that our students can have. So I'm
So
going to
now,
move her toward the end of her. I'm sorry. I'm going to move her toward the end of the video.
artificial intelligence can also be used to make fake digital pictures that appear real, like these images that look just like real people but were actually created using a computer program. But here's some good news. You can make a real impact. You have instant access to a global audience with social media. So whenever there is something that you think the world needs to be aware of, you can let everyone know. Just make sure to check it out first. It's up to all of us to push back against misinformation. We need to fight to clean it up because it truly matters to our communities, the nation, and the world.
Oops. So that is our misinformation lesson. And I have to say that it is one that I really am very impressed by. Uh-oh. Can you all still hear me? Looks like it. I think so.
Yes, yes, we can hear you.
Thank you. Thank you. Printable resources. We do have some printable resources, but we also have educators that just share. What I shared is the preview. They just share the preview version from like a smart board with their students, and they just walk through the whole lesson together so that students can still experience the videos. They can't answer the formative assessments, um, but they can at least maybe do them whole group, or you could turn that into like a breakout activity where they, maybe get into small groups and answer them. So I'm happy to thought partner with you and sort of, start thinking of ways that to make this resource useful for you. With Checkology, I always share that not only do we have this content, but we also have our Newsroom to Classroom program. And Newsroom to Classroom is a program that it's honestly just incredible to see in practice. This program connects educators and their students with practicing journalists. These journalists are all vetted. So we've talked to them all. We know they are who they say they are. And so you can invite them into your learning experiences either in person or virtually. And this is just another free service included with your Checkology account. So even if you are, say, maybe you're not using a Checkology lesson per se, maybe you're using rumor guard entries, you can still reach out to these journalists. You don't have to have completed a Checkology lesson to do that. And before I close, I do want to take some time for questions. I know we're right at the end here. Um, but are there any questions that I can answer uh, for you? Looks like Bailey, I think you might be the only one left. Is there anything you'd like to ask? I can unmute your mic if you'd like. Okay, awesome. Hopefully you should be allowed to unmute now.
Can you hear me?
I can.
Awesome. Thanks, Anna. About the sources for younger kids, what do those look like? I'm just wondering, like, how do you set the groundwork for these kind of skills that they're going to need as they grow up?
Yeah. Oh, that's a really good question. Let me actually pull it up. Since you are here alone live, you get a VIP treatment.
Thank you. And don't let me keep you if you've got places to
No,
be.
no. It is okay. But so this is what they look like. They're here's the unit right here. Um, they are Google document based. So what they do is it's rooted in our framework for teaching news literacy, which are standards. And then we went and we created grade band expectations. So we do have information about what news literacy will look like at these levels. And so this here really just takes those competencies and goals, and it connects resources. So here's a media literacy scavenger hunt that is done again with Time for Kids and NLP, and it's slides. There's also this vocabulary self-assessment. This is a PDF. So these would be printable.
Okay.
Um, or things that you can do with your students, like whole group, like you could project for them.
Okay, awesome. Is Time for Kids also a free resource, or is that a paid?
Time for Kids is a paid resource.
Okay.
I believe everything linked here is free and open. For example, this one that I just clicked on.
Okay.
These are the exit tickets. But I know that many schools do have subscriptions to Time for Kids, or many districts. So that might be something that your district could help pay for.
Well, awesome. I'm just trying. I'm a single librarian at an independent school, so
Okay,
I'm trying to piece
yes.
together things that I can do because there's no district, there's no big money, so
Got it.
just
Got
trying to
it.
piece things together as I go.
Got it. Well, I am happy to help answer any questions you have and or connect you to colleagues that might be able to help. Because I think that's a common problem that we're hearing. And so we do try to make sure, like, here's an article from Time for Kids that you can actually, like, you can you can access, is what I was trying to
Okay.
say. You can access this.
Okay.
So there are pieces you can access, if that makes sense. But I'm happy again to like partner with you to think about how to best make this work for your students.
Okay, that would be awesome. I'm gonna look through all the stuff that you sent, and then I might email you with some questions.
Of course.
I really think that a lot of what you share with Checkology will be perfect for my 5th and 6th graders, but maybe some of this for the younger kids.
Yes, yes. And we do have, if you go here to Educator Tools to our resource library, I can put a link on the Google document if it's not there, but just to show you, there are some things for like lower grades, and still it's like 4.
Okay.
ish. But there's a frozen resource, and I always have trouble getting to it if I
Yep,
don't have it linked. Oh, here it is.
sure. Our
This
kinders love it.
one, yeah, like my 5-year-old loves Frozen. So
Mhm.
here's, this is a classroom resource that is Google document based. That is something maybe you could modify down or really like lead your students through. So hopefully that will also help and give you some food for thought.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for taking the extra time.
Of course, no problem.